Have you always wondered how AI can help make the game of your dreams? Well, today we're going to make a fun dual-stick shooter that you can expand on and make it awesome. By the end of this episode, you'll have a playable game with enemies, sounds, and a leaderboard that you can share with your friends, along with an explanation of my favorite web application building tool, Replit. Jumping into Replit, we are taking our prompt here, putting it into the text box, and we're actually going to click this button, Improve Prompt. So it's going to talk to its own LLM, go back and kind of improve what I've said, keep the spirit of it, which we'll read through here in a moment. I won't read this whole original prompt. You guys can pause the video and check it out for yourselves. But let's see what it came up with. Keeping the spirit of what I already kind of put in there, which is great. So we got our core features here. It's good. And visual references. Nice, nice. Love those visual references. And a style guide. Those are good colors. So we can kind of already just give the Replit project a good idea of what we're going for. So we're going to click the Start Chat button, and it's going to get to work creating the app. Now, the initial stages here takes a while, so you're going to have to wait a little bit. So you could go get some coffee or take a little break or do what you need to do while it kind of grinds through everything. And then it's going to ask you if you approve the plan of what it's going to build. And we're just going to, in the true spirit of vibe coding, we're going to take exactly what it says, and then you're going to want to iterate with it. Is it going to get everything right on the first shot? No. And that's just fine. That's the whole fun of building with these AI tools, is being able to iterate and figure out exactly what you're trying to build and what you're trying to do. So it's a lot of fun working with these tools. So here it is. It's kind of considering its options. It's building out the code. It's starting. You can kind of read what it has here. A retro style 2D shooter game with dual stick controls, XP progression, and classic NES inspired pixel art built with React and HTML5 canvas. Yeah, so this should be pretty cool. Let's see what it comes up with. It says it's built a retro style 2D arena shooter game with the following features. So this is looking pretty good for the game design that I was going for. So let's see what happens here. Okay, so we got movement. We got some form of aimer here. Oop, shooting with left click. Oh, I messed up with my right click there. And I'm kind of stuck to the walls here, it feels like, for some strange reason. I'm hitting the right key. Oh, there, I got off the walls. Okay, we even got some sound effects. That's fun. This is pretty challenging, actually. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised at how good this is on a one-shot. This is, we can iterate from here, though, and see what we can come up with. Oh boy, this guy's almost got me. So, oh, yep, the dots are disappearing, and oh, we got our level up already. Wow. Okay, so faster shooting, increased bullet damage, increased movement speed. I'm going to go with faster shooting. So I think I can just click more. Maybe I need to change this to not clicking shots, but kind of hold down and shoot. So let's make that change. So the agent is really good for kind of overall bigger changes. And so what you really want to use for this is what's called the assistant. And it's also cheaper to use. The assistant is about 5 cents per request, complete a request, and the agent is 25 cents. Sometimes you just want to use the agent, though, to really kind of get your changes across, kind of bigger changes across, but the assistant is really good for smaller things like this. So I want to hold the mouse button to shoot and not click. Pretty easy prompt there. Nothing too complex. The AI should have no problem with that. Cool. Looks like it just changed something in the kind of game engine script. Kind of see that right here. Okay, we're going to apply that. Click OK. All right. Yep, got that right. This is what I'm talking about. Small changes. This is what we want. Small changes to change our program. We don't want to do big swaths of changes. Let's remove that sound effect. That's annoying. On second thought, let's use SFXR and let's make our own pickup sound. All right, that one sounds pretty good. download that. And then we can add our sound. Add this sound on pickup of coins. Great, so it's done. We're going to apply that, apply those changes. And when we have the game refresh here, hit start game. We pick up a coin now. Nice, got our sound effect. Very simple. I like this pickup coin sound effect instead, so I'm going to use this one. Okay, so we made that change. Let's apply it. And then now, when the game refreshes, we're going to see that new pickup sound. Honestly, guys, I'm really impressed with how much this is a really good game already, and we haven't even really done that much. We've already got collisions, we've got shooting, we've got attacking, we've got pickup sounds, we've got everything. So it's pretty impressive. So let's refresh the game. Jump back in here. We should hear the new sound. There we go. That's much better. That sounds more like a coin pickup sound. Let's continue making changes and let's make some bigger and better graphics. So let's just tell the AI assistant on that one too. I also wanted to add a bit of explosions too. Let's see what kind of effects it comes up with. We want to do what's called in game design adding juice. So we want to add some juice to our game. I did that on another game I made. It's called shootersurvivor.com. You can go to that and you can check that out. That game has a decent amount of juice, vibe-coded juice, so you guys can check that out. So here you can see that the AI is acknowledging to make bigger and better graphics with more impressive explosions, so that's great. So it's going to create a particle system with explosion effects, and it's going to enhance the game engine to use the explosion system to make enemies larger. So let's see what this looks like when it's all done. Wow, so it actually did a lot of things, guys. We've got a more explosive particle effects, screen shake, larger game objects. It basically did an entire pass over our game. This is great. This is impressive. I really hope it's super cool. So we want to apply all these changes. So it kind of comes up with everything. And then you have the choice to apply those changes. So let's see what happens here. The game's going to refresh. And we're going to start game. So things are a little bit more glowy. That's cool. Oh, yep. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, my goodness. Okay. Wow, real kind of crazy explosions right there. I'm not used to that. I want the enemies and the player character to be bigger. So let's make that change too. Sometimes it's good to give parameters to your AI agent. Don't just say make them bigger. So I'm looking at that and I'm going, I want them at least 100% bigger. Let's see what it comes up with here. Although I'm a little bit disappointed, it didn't come up with new graphics. So I'm going to say come up with new graphics for the player and for the enemies. Let's see if it can just come up with something. Sometimes it generates things. Sometimes it has like its own database of art. I could also pull in a sprite sheet. I'm not going to do that today. Yeah, that's better. There we go. I actually don't really like it that there's not more enemies coming at me. I want this game to be crazy. So I'm asking the AI to spawn more enemies and make them more varied. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, so we're going to apply those changes. Came up with some new enemy types. And it's a new explosive enemy type. So let's see what that plays like. I mean, this is pretty intense with those explosions. And you can kind of see that, you know, it does have a death sound, but I should, yeah, here we go. This is way more frantic, but I should make a lot more sound. So we could use the SFXR to do that, to kind of keep it with the retro theme. We're not going to get to that in this video, but that could be something easily expanded. Here we go. Now this is way crazier, so I really have to work. Oh, I took a hit. Okay, for our last thing we want to do, we actually want to make a database. And with this database, we're going to hold on to the high scores. And we also want people to be able to enter in their names. So we're going to make a high score table. So we're just basically telling the AI, hey, this is how we want our high score table to show in descending order. High score is going to show their name, and it's going to be on the title screen and after the game is done for everybody to see. So it's going to get to work on that. I'm actually using the assistant for that. That could have been a mistake, but it can still handle things like that. I should have put that into the agent. So when it's a more of a bigger change like that, sometimes it's hard to remember because you're just vibing, right? Hey, I should put that into the agent, not the assistant. Because remember, the assistant is more for kind of one-off changes, and the agent is kind of more for larger overarching changes. So I didn't even follow my own advice, and I already messed up that part. So that's just something that we can all learn about, is to remember to use the agent at different agents at appropriate times, which can be confusing at times. So this is an interesting point. The agent has an API route. So this routes means that it's actually a backend call. So Replit does take care of what's called a backend for your game. So it actually uses what's called an API, an application programmer interface, to interface with your application. So you have your front end, which is what you see here. And then you have your backend, which typically handles your data logic and business logic for all the data that flows through your application. And that is what the user doesn't see. So you have your front end, the visual front face that everybody sees, like going to a website. And then you have the back end that has more of the data crunching, business logic, you know, what kind of data gets sent to the front end to then be visually displayed. That's something to keep in mind when you're working with Replit, that it actually does have a concept of a front end and a back end. So it looks like it made an API for the high scores, which is correct. That's what we would want it to do. And it has some extra logic here to handle how the scores are being displayed, what the menu component does, what the game over component does, and being able to hopefully add in our name and handle our high score. So we're going to apply that. It's touching a lot of files. Let's see if the assistant can handle this. Okay, so it looks like it labels it as global high scores. Could just be called high scores, but yeah, we'll roll with it. Start our game here. We'll kill a few enemies, pick up a few things, put in a score of some kind, and then we'll die there. It looks like it did not let me add in my name, so that could be an issue with what it added in. Okay, so I can tell that the AI did not make a database because we can go to the database tab and there's no database schema being shown or data. So it didn't follow all those instructions in the previous steps. So we want to have the player be presented with a name entry and their score, and for it to be added to the database and then taken to the high score table after that. So I'm being a little bit more direct now. Please make a database to handle the high scores that will include the player's name, score, and level they reached. So let's give that to the assistant. Let's see if it can handle that. If it doesn't handle it here, I'm going to jump over to the agent and see if it can kind of handle the overarching kind of idea and architecture behind that. But let's give the assistant a chance. I have had good luck doing this before, but maybe this is just too large of a change for the assistant to handle. So it looks like the assistant wasn't able to handle it. It says it created a database, but it didn't. So maybe it thinks locally it did, like local variables, but that's not what we're looking for. we're actually looking for the database schema to be set up within Replit. So we're going to jump over to the agent, which is probably what I should have done to begin with, and let's run it here. Okay, it looks like it's creating the database now. We got our development database. So Replit recently added in the ability to have development databases and production databases. So that would show up here. We have all databases, and it tells me here that I'm in my development database. For this project, that's just fine. Okay, it looks like the agent has done a lot of work. So the assistant probably just didn't fill out all the details, right? So the agent is doing a lot here. It's getting the API set up. It's looking at the game over screen, figuring that out. And it sees that some of the things that the assistant did is going to help it, but it wasn't completely fleshed out. It updated that, updated the menu component, and so it updated the database schema, actually created the database, so that's good. And now let's make sure that it actually plays well and that our name is able to be entered in and that we're able to actually enter in a high score. So let's give it a quick little try here. We won't play that long. Just get a few points. That should be good enough. Just get something. Here's our name. Put in my name. Great. And it looks like it added in some extra records in here, which is interesting because it doesn't look like it's in our database. So this is probably some local variables that are being added to the high scores. So we could probably just ask the AI to take those out. So I'm noting that these look like local variables, that they're not part of the database because we just looked in the database and we did not see them in there. You can do that by going over to the database tab and then actually looking at the My Data, and you can see what high scores are in here. And it's interesting, my score is not in there. So that tells me that it's actually not being added to the database. So there's probably some local variables going on here, meaning we're not actually adding it to a store, a database store. We're just working with a variable locally and then displaying that data locally. And the way that we can probably figure that out, oh, yep, there, it just refreshed. So now my scores are gone. So that tells me it wasn't persistently stored within a database, which is external from our code, right? So we want to have that external data storage so we can reference it for everybody, because your clients can be different from my client and your friend's client. We're all not going to have the same variables. That's per client. The database is the global store for everybody who hits our app. So that's how you have to think of this. So I just played around and I see that my name is being added, but I checked the database and it's not there. So I made another prompt here. Please make sure that when someone gets a high score and enters their name, that the score is recorded into the database to be used in the high score table. Don't use local variables. You got to love it when the AI just, is so encouraging. You're absolutely right. And it's like, thank you. I appreciate that. But I really just kind of want this thing to work properly. Yeah, so right here, it does say, hey, let's actually use the database, which is a Postgres database, and instead of a temporary memory storage. So that's what I was talking about before, that instead of the local variables, holding on to the scores, which will just get erased every time we reload the page. Instead, we actually want to use a database, which is our global data storage, to be used for every application that hits your app. Okay, so we have a high score here. Let's put that in. And here's our global high scores. So let's refresh our database. And so I don't know what the users table is. That's something that Replit likes to do a lot, that it just assumes there's going to be users to be logged into your application. So instead of everything under the high scores table, it actually has this users table as well. So it just assumes you're going to have a login system. We're not. So we're just doing high scores. So I could actually tell it to get rid of that, but I won't for this example. But here's my high score in the table. So hooray, it's being added. So from here, you can deploy your application on Replit, and it takes care of coming up with an auto-scaling plan. So this is fine. And what it comes up with here is just fine as well. I mean, you could scale down the machines. Don't worry about that. For most use cases, these settings are just fine. If you get heavy duty into something, or if you're blowing up, hey, you can kind of adjust those things later. So here we have our primary domain. So Pixel Arena -Nate Pasiga. Great. That is just fine. Replit also takes care of all of the deployment secrets, so that stuff is not exposed on the client. So that's great. So that's some of the security that Replit does, which is wonderful, especially when you're working with third-party APIs. So we're going to hit the deploy button. It's going to make this application public so you guys can check it out, or any of your friends or anybody else. So that's what I encourage you guys to do, is to take your applications, put them into the outside world, send your link around, and have people check it out. It's really as simple as that. You have to check out tools like Replit, Lovable, Flute, Bolt.new. Any of those have this kind of deployment option. I personally like Replit. This channel will focus on Replit because of the great deployment tools and auto-scaling solutions it does. I feel like it's one of the most robust solutions out there. The other thing that I like from an engineering standpoint, because I'm an engineer of 20 years, is that I actually can get into the code. And I have before. I try not to, but I have gotten into the code. I want to just use the AIs for what they're good at. But you can actually make code changes and see the code in this nice header. Can be a little bit slow sometimes, depending on how big the project is. But that is nice that I have the option to be able to get into the code. And you can do that by clicking this little folder icon underneath your home button. So as you guys can see, we are almost done with the build process. This doesn't take that long. This is a small application, so it doesn't take that long for it to kind of provision everything, which means getting the server ready, making the actual build, keep bundling everything together, and then promoting it to a production environment. It doesn't totally tell you everything that it's doing, but that's fine. Kind of don't need to know all the CI/CD kind of things that are going on here. Continuous integration, continuous deployment is what that stands for. You don't really need to know about all that, so it kind of takes care of what we call the DevOps for us, developer operations. So it's really nice. And here we go. We have our application is live. This is a totally public URL. I will put the link in the description, along with a link to the code and link to the school to where you can get this code. So we copied the URL, put it into our address bar, and here we go. This is our game. Pretty amazing, guys. And there you have it. Making a game has never been easier. Today we made a fun little twin stick shooter game with sound, enemies, and a leaderboard. You can share with your friends and challenge them to a little friendly competition. I hope you'll give tools like Replit a try, and be sure to join my school community to get the code. Link is in the description, and so is a link to the game itself. Have fun.